They may look like a band of gypsies, but they're the finest marksmen in King George's army.
It's at this stunning Roman bridge in Spain that Wellington's 95th Rifles proved themselves as an elite, a force capable of operating independently, of fighting in small, flexible groups.
Where are the French?
Today we're going to walk two key battlefields, Barba del Puerco and the combat on the Coa. We'll hear the first-hand accounts and learn about the skills and weaponry that made Richard Sharpe's old regiment an elite unit in an incredible army.
We're walking down this path in the middle of nowhere at a place called Barba del Puerco. Now, never heard of it? Don't worry, you're in good company. I'm sure 99% of the blokes who fought there had never heard of it either. But that's why you watch Redcoat History, to learn new things and explore long forgotten places. Let's go have a look.
Barba del Puerco, which is literally translates as like the beard of the pig, is the village and then the bridge that's covering the river Almeida. And the Almeida, along with the Coa, make up like the kind of rough border, the traditional border of Portugal and Spain, but they intersect this country. And it is rough going. All around here you've got rolling hills and then these steep ravines that we're heading down into where the rivers run through the terrain.
So the British and French in these border areas would play a game of tactical cat and mouse, I guess. Both of them trying to outflank the other, both of them trying to stop the other from outflanking them. And this was part of that chessboard, that checkerboard, where the guys played those games. There's a small bridge here, but it's an important bridge. Like bridges throughout this conflict, they were so important because without the bridge, you'd have to build one. And that was a massive logistical challenge. So there was just a small British outpost here, wasn't there? Do we know who was based here and how many soldiers, more or less?
Yes, we've got the 95th Rifles, about 200 men. And they have pickets up in the village of Barba del Puerco, and then their outposts down here at a mirador, like a viewing area, and then a picket on the bridge itself.
So it's a long walk, actually. We've parked at the top of this hill as close as we could get. It feels we're probably only halfway there, and I would not fancy being part of a two-man picket at night at the bottom of this massive ravine. I would be pretty damn terrified. So luckily, the lads of the 95th Rifles were a bit tougher and braver than me.
So why were the 95th Rifles different? Well, they weren't born out of tradition, they were forged out of necessity. The British Army found itself up against clouds of French skirmishers who would make life very uncomfortable for the British Redcoats. To help counter this, the army formed the Experimental Corps of Riflemen in 1800, a green-jacketed band of sharpshooters who operated in loose order, thought for themselves and picked off officers at long range. These lads weren't handed muskets, they carried the Baker rifle, a weapon that could actually hit something beyond shouting distance. Their training was revolutionary, under the sharp-eyed leadership of men like Colonel Coote Manningham and the famously no-nonsense Sir John Moore. The Rifles and the other light infantry units who served alongside them were drilled not just in marksmanship and skirmishing, but in self-reliance. Each company was a tight-knit team. Discipline was based on mutual respect, not flogging. These men were encouraged to think, to learn, even to swim and play football, all in the name of creating a soldier who could move fast, shoot straight, and survive on campaign.
Drill them, Mr. Denny!
In an age when many regiments still believed pipe clay and parade ground drill were the most important factor in winning wars, the 95th proved that brains and a Baker rifle could make all the difference. Why is a Baker rifle important, I hear you ask? Don't worry, we'll come back to that later.
The rifle regiment has only two marches, quick time and dawdling.
So for me, Marcus, and I'm sure for you too, this right here, coming off the beaten track, seeing a little known battlefield. Look, there's the bridge. I'm going to point with my tripod down at the bottom. Not sure if you can see it on camera. This is why I make this YouTube channel, to keep these stories, these men alive. About 3/4 of the way up the hill, on the map, it says Corporal's Picket. Now, we can't be sure exactly where that was, but I'm having a look here. I'm thinking if I'm a corporal and it's a wet night, this is probably a pretty good spot to set up. What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, look at that natural shelter.
Yeah.
There's water running everywhere, but that's the same thing. But we're far above the valley. It's a long way for the pickets to raise alarm.
That's at least 20 minutes at a run, isn't it?
So 20 minutes at run. We're starting to sweat.
This is not for the faint-hearted coming down here.
Okay, the Baker rifle. I did promise more info, didn't I? So here goes. It wasn't just a new weapon for the army, it was a revolution in British marksmanship. We had seen some British rifles used in the American Revolution, I've done a video about them, but they'd fallen out of favour. But now the pendulum was slowly swinging back. In 1800, the Board of Ordnance tested a range of rifles to arm the newly raised rifle unit, and a London gunsmith named Ezekiel Baker walked off with the prize. His barrel had rifling, which in other words is grooves down the inside of the barrel that gives the ball a tight spin. I always think of it like a rugby ball, you know when you spin pass it? This gave it a deadly accuracy, even at over 200 yards. Now that might not sound much today, but compared to the smoothbore Brown Bess musket, which was lucky to hit anything over 75 yards, it was certainly a big improvement. Baker's rifle was shorter, lighter and more robust than earlier rifles, and crucially it could survive field use in the hands of men expected to fight hard and march harder. In other words, unlike many previous rifles, it was squaddy proof. In action, the Baker rifle made a big difference. Riflemen trained with live ammo learned to shoot on the move and could hit a French officer right between the epaulets while the redcoats were still forming line. Firing in pairs, these skirmishers screened the army's flanks, sniped at gunners and sowed confusion ahead of the main assault. But at the time of Barba del Puerco, there were still some question marks over the weapon and the usefulness of the green jackets themselves. How would they perform?
So we finally made it down to the bridge and it is absolutely beautiful. But I want you to picture the scene. It's late at night, it's March 1810, the rain is pissing it down, it's coming down in barrel loads. And unbeknownst to the two pickets on this side of the bridge, the western side, there's at least 600 angry Frenchmen working their way through the darkness down to the eastern end of the bridge. So Marcus, what happens next?
So the French managed to cross the bridge. Two guys on picket don't spot them. It's dark, it's the middle of the night, maybe they're chatting, maybe they're slightly distracted. And one of them is bayoneted and the other one manages to raise the alarm by scrambling back up the path that we've just come down. And it's steep, so it'd be slow going. The French cross this narrow ancient bridge. It's a beautiful area and they would have suddenly found themselves on this bit of flat ground having come down there. Probably quite quietly, but it would be hard going with their hobnail boots. And as they come round, eventually British riflemen are coming down from the village. They back pickets at the front end of the village, at the chapel, and their main positions a little bit way down the steep. So they would have come down and started opening fire. But the British had, pushed back a little bit. There's a lot of Frenchmen, they're well outnumbered. And they hold off the French from coming any further. And once they're able to work their way down the slopes, the French are held here at the bridge. We see it, it's narrow, they're going to be fired upon from the top, so there's absolutely no cover, and they're going to struggle to return fire into the darkness, into the gloom, whereas here you know that the Frenchmen are. They're also being picked out. 95th Rifle wear black leather, the French wore white leather, and apparently it's a bit of an X marks the spots across their chest. They're crossbelts, so their ammunition pouches and their equipment, their crossbelts form this X cross amongst the blue and the grey coats.
So the moonlight's reflecting off their equipment.
And it's just like illuminating them a little bit, whereas the green uniforms and the black leather is camouflaged.
Clever Brits.
It works, it's camouflage. It's mostly designed because of fashion, but it works really well. And the cazadores, their Portuguese counterparts, wear brown for a similar reason.
Lieutenant George Simmons wrote a book about his time in the 95th and later recalled, "A small party of riflemen stationed amongst the rocks kept up a fire. The sergeant being shot through the mouth and the enemy being so numerous they could not impede their progress. In a moment after the arrival of the main body of the picket, the French were literally scrambling up the rocky ground within 10 yards of us. We commenced firing at each other very spiritedly. Their drums beat a charge and the French attempted to dislodge us without effect. My friend Lieutenant Mercer, who was putting on his spectacles, received a musket ball through his head and fell dead close to my feet. Several were now falling, and the moon for a few minutes shone brightly, then disappeared, and again at intervals let us see each other. We profited by this circumstance as their belts were white and over their greatcoats, so that where they crossed upon the breast, combined with the glare of the breastplate, gave a grand mark for our rifles."
And the rifles are picking these men off. We see casualties, men like Lieutenant Mercer, but luckily in time, Colonel Beckwith, with 3 companies more of 95th Rifles, arrange themselves on those heights and pour fire down with their accurate Baker rifles, the 1800 land pattern, onto this area, and they're able to push the French back. And you can imagine the scene behind me lit up with the short barrels of the 95th Rifles, deadly weapons, and the Frenchmen scattered down amongst our feet.
And is that the end of the battle, Marcus?
That's it. And the French have got to turn tail and scramble back up the slope for their lives.
Not easy.
Not easy. And even today, I can see all the prickly pear cacti up there. It's not going to be pleasant going at all.
But Marcus, what does this tell us about the Peninsular War? These sorts of small, deadly battles in the middle of nowhere.
It's not all set-piece actions and sieges. We often think of the red coats versus the blue coats, but actually there's loads of these actions, even things like the Coa, which is a bit bigger. And it goes all the way up to the Peninsular War ending near the Pyrenees and into France. We've got the bridge at Vera, which is a very similar action to this, where Captain Cadal defends a bridge against a French attack at night and overnight. And we just see lots of these smaller actions that aren't as well told. It reminds me of our guy, Richard Sharpe, commanding.
Can't forget him.
It's really hard to forget. And the reason being is that you're off by yourself in these kind of areas. It's not a special forces kind of situation. It's a lone picket. It's flank protection. It's strategic points. But it tells us there's a lot more to the Peninsular War than just the big battles. There's these actions taking place all over the place, and they help build up the picture, and also men who are fighting and dying that aren't necessarily on the main battle memorials as well.
Marcus is racing back. He's keen to climb all the way back up there. I'm not so keen.
Where are the French?
Come on, Crib, get a move on. Yeah, so it took us about half an hour. Marcus and I are now back at the top with the car. Marcus, are you as knackered as me, mate?
No.
Look at
I
that.
love that.
Look at that
So
sweat.
But it's a good climb, I would say. Degree of fitness needed, and it's a Spanish spring, and we're quite warm. But I'll say what, it was worth it, Chris.
It was good, very good. If you get the chance, come walk down here.
Very quickly, who got up the hill first?
You cheated. You.
So for now at least, the French had been blocked from crossing the river and advancing deeper into Portugal. But this wasn't the end of their attempts. And soon the elite light division, including the rifles of course, would be back in action at another stunning location.
So as you can imagine, a video like this takes a lot of research. And when I need to dig into a specific conflict, there's only one publisher I turn to, yep, Osprey. These are just a few from my collection that are relevant to today's film. We've got Wellington's Peninsular Army, Wellington's Infantry Part 2, the King's German Legion, French Napoleonic Infantry Tactics, artillery equipments of the Napoleonic Wars, and of course one of my all-time favourite books, although this one's been a little bit damaged due to a flood, The Peninsular War Atlas by Colonel Nick Lipscomb. Brilliant. Let's be honest, if you love military history, you already know who Osprey Publishing are, but I wanted to show you some of their recent releases that I reckon you'll love. First up, British Light Infantry and Rifle Tactics of the Napoleonic Wars. This new Osprey title dives into the training and tactics of Wellington's finest, yep, the light infantry and rifle regiments who rewrote the rules of war. It's packed with first-hand accounts, battlefield breakdowns, and enough detail to satisfy reenactors, wargamers, and incredibly handsome history nerds like you and I. You'll find the link in the description, and it's on screen now. Every new book I mentioned today can be found there at Osprey Publishing's website. But we're not done yet. Next up, we've got British Rifleman versus French Skirmisher. This one dives into 3 cracking moments where the 95th faced off against Napoleon's finest in open order, including of course the brutal fight for the bridge at Barba del Puerco. Great minds think alike. You'll get a clear view of how these troops fought in rough terrain, sniped at officers, used initiative and fire discipline to devastating effect, all backed by expert analysis and primary sources. Again, just follow the link below. And it's not all redcoats and riflemen. Osprey's about to release this book, Korea War Without End. It's now available for pre-order. A deep dive into the Cold War's hottest conflict, from MacArthur's Landing to the Chinese counterattack and the terrifying flirtation with nuclear escalation. This book cuts through the political fog and lays bare the chaos, misjudgments and immense human cost, especially for the Korean people who paid the highest price of all. If you want to understand the war that shaped the modern world and never really ended, it's the place to start. Right, that's enough book chat. Click the link below to support the channel and hopefully keep Osprey as a sponsor for the future. Let's get back to the rifles who are about to get themselves into just a little bit of trouble.
This is the fortress city of Almeida, or Almeida, on the border between Spain and Portugal. It's the key to the region. If the French take this, then Portugal could fall. At the head of the advancing French army are some impressive characters.
We've seen a slight change in commanders and characters on the French side. Enter the scene André Masséna, known as the Prince of Essling, or Napoleon calls him the Sweet Child of Victory.
Great nickname.
Great nickname, and with that reputation brings, his string of victories before him, a really competent commander and more French troops. Lots of these being seasoned veterans, no easy pushover. And also under his command, we've got Michel Ney with his flaming red hair and often nicknamed the bravest of the brave. And so these personalities facing towards Wellington, his Brits and his Portuguese, never mind his Spanish allies, it's going to be a really tough fight in the season to come.
So picture the scene, it's dawn on the 24th of July 1810 and a senior French officer, Michel Ney, pulls on his boots and thinks to himself, today's the day we're going to crush those pesky redcoats. And he's got the men to do it, over 20,000 of them. And in his way, the Light Division under Black Bob Crawford.
Crawford shouldn't have had his division so close to the city. He had been ordered by Wellington to withdraw over the Coa River, but he hadn't listened, and now he had 20,000 enemy soldiers advancing angrily towards him. In the confusion, Crawford lost control of the situation. It was only the quick thinking and sharp shooting of his troops that slowed the French. Here's our friend George Simmons of the 95th again. He said, "The whole plain in our front was covered with horse and foot advancing towards us. The enemy's infantry formed line and with an innumerable multitude of skirmishers attacked us fiercely. We repulsed them. They came on again, yelling with drums beating. We moved from the field into the road, our men falling all around us, when a body of hussars in bearskin caps and light-coloured pelisses got amongst the few remaining riflemen and began to sabre them. A volley was now fired by a party of the 43rd under Captain Wells, which brought several of the hussars to the ground. In the scuffle, I took to my heels and ran to the 43rd. The road to a small bridge across the Coa, which the division would have to retire over, was very bad and rocky. Our gallant fellows disputed manfully every inch of ground and retired towards the river."
Marcus, is this more or less the route that the Light Division would have withdrew down towards the Coa River and the bridge?
Yes, so we've now got Almeida just behind us and the Coa River straight in front, and this old dirt track, typical of this part of beautiful Portugal, with the granite stone and the rough track, and this is directly the route on as the crow flies towards the bridge. So they would have been strung out over my left shoulder, pushing down there, and always under threat of French cavalry.
So what's good about Combat of the Coa is it's quite a small sight to see if you've just come from Almeida. So Almeida's in that direction, and this is the rough area of an old track we're stood on, heading towards the bridge. So the British and Portuguese of the Light Division will be streaming along this track, heading off in that area. They pause to hold the wall of a windmill, which is roughly just behind what's now the memorial up there. They move behind it, but they do note it's there as a bit of protection, and that comes key later. But you can imagine there's going to be a sense of panic because you can't move across this ravine. The Coa River is quite wide, it's rained before this, and the ravine itself is really steep. These huge granite boulders, and it's several meters wide, far too wide to jump across even in a panic with a hairy Frenchman charging at you. So they need to get across this narrow bridge. The good news is they can get across the bridge, it then gives them an opportunity to hold it on the far side.
Marcus, absolutely stunning spot down on the Coa River. We've moved from Almeida. This was where Crawford had to put up a fight. Now, he was told categorically by Wellington, wasn't he? Don't get caught on that side of the river, and yet here we are. What happened?
It's a really bad move by Crawford, but there's a few things that might be on his favour. One, he's trying to screen, classic military tactic to delay the enemy. And two, he's got Almeida on his left flank, mostly, but the French cavalry managed to get between there. So he might be feeling a bit confident. And what he's just
Cocky even.
Cocky, confident, overconfident. But he's just destroyed Fort de la Conception, now today a hotel, and he's blown that up just on the other side of the border. So he thinks he's destroyed that one, he's preserving the other one, and actually he's in quite a good position. But what he hasn't realised also is the strength of Ney's force facing him.
And also on the day of the battle, a bit like today, there'd been a lot of rain, hadn't they? So this river is almost impassable unless he can hold this bridge.
This gorge, either side of us, is really steep, harsh granite, drops away, and then it's been a little bit of light rain yesterday and it's absolutely in full flow. There's no way you're getting across that. This bridge is going to be the only way in this area you're going to be getting across here. and it's quite narrow. 6 people wide. It's going to be funneling people in, especially if you've got to get the light division across really quickly.
So at the top of the slope above the bridge, I'm a bit out of breath from walking up here, there's some sort of memorial, but whatever information was here, sadly, seems to have gone.
It's great ground. Think of all these boulders. Yes, they're loose, some of them, but they also give great cover. The difficulty being is if you're in hobnail boots, it's quite slippery, especially if it's rained, the moss and the lichen on top. But there's huge cover there, and these little like foreign oak trees, and there's olive groves further up, and tufts of gorse and heather. It's really nice terrain. We've enjoyed driving through it and seeing all the olive trees with the goats and donkeys amongst it. It could be really peaceful if it wasn't for the Ney's Corps coming down upon you. So as the light division is streaming back and they're getting choked at the bridge, Major MacLeod of the 43rd Light Infantry takes the initiative, fixes bayonets with the 43rd and a couple of companies of them, turns tail and heads towards a low wall near a windmill that's mentioned. And they take position on these rocks, scrambling on up. Off we go. And you can see it'd be quite a hard fight, but with bayonets and surprise elements, they catch the French off guard, take the fight to them, and cause them to pause, retake that wall that they've just moved over, and cause the French to just momentarily pause, hold their position, and MacLeod's able to extract back along the bridge, buying the guys time. That pause in fighting allows them to extract themselves successfully, and by that point, light infantry, rifles, and cazadores have taken up position and firing points on the far side, where they can get amongst the rocks and get some cover and use their light infantry pattern muskets and their Baker rifles to start pelting off any Frenchman that appears on this side of the river. You can imagine this is perfect for light infantry with their fore and aft sights, but also the cazadores and the rifles. They've got their Baker rifles, now known as, with really good sights on them. They can adjust them. And amongst there, these walls of the old bridge actually offer very little protection. It's below waist height, and if you're on one side trying to take cover from the other, you're going to be fired upon from an oblique angle. So the French don't really have a chance, and it takes them several attempts just to try to charge across here using momentum, weight of mass charging across. And you know that if you're being formed up to do that, those at the front, no chance.
Goners.
Absolutely goners. You just don't have an opportunity. There's going to be a huge mass of firepower, basically hundreds of rifles aiming at you. You think of the range of the Baker rifle is all of this area down upon, and as you're getting closer, you're adding in muskets, and you can't really fire back. And if you do, you can't stop to reload without the fear of being killed. And they just lose that impetus as they go across, and the French don't make it to the far side. And we'll show you what you mean by the ground on the far side as well. Come with me. So rifles, light infantry are trained to fire from lots of different positions. Standing, yes, okay. Kneeling, fine. Seated, a weirdly comfortable position because you can lock your elbows into your knees and sit cross-footed. But something else they would do is take their shakos or their packs off and use them as a covered position. It's really stable, and anyone coming in there, the whole ridge, especially in a French coat with white and red facings, mustachioed face, growling at you, can pick them off. The terrain like this is a rifleman and light infantryman's dream. You've got cover and they're struggling to move.
In a private letter to a friend, Lieutenant Henry Booth of the 43rd wrote, "We defended the bridge against 3 attempts of the French to force it, in all of which they failed, suffering heavy losses. Finally, the firing mutually ceased on account of torrents of rain that fell, after 5 hours hard peppering at each other. Towards night we retired and have been gradually falling back. The main body of the army is still more in the rear, and we have only a few cavalry in our front." It had been a hard morning's fighting for the men of the Light Division, who had nearly paid a terrible price for Crawford's unwillingness to withdraw them rapidly across the Coa River. Wellington's displeasure at the affair is clear from a letter he wrote to his brother immediately afterwards. He said, You may be very certain that not only have I had nothing to do with, but had positively forbidden the foolish affair in which Crawford involved his outposts. I had positively desired him not to engage in any affair on the other side of the Coa. Crawford, a man of immense talents and much respected by Wellington, had been too eager to risk his division in basically an unnecessary fight. It seems likely that he was desperate to prove himself after a career that had been full of misfortune and missed opportunities. That night, under the cover of darkness, the division finally withdrew. The third French invasion of Portugal was now in full swing.
So what can we take away from the battle here at this beautiful bridge? Well, firstly, don't ignore Wellington's orders, because if you do, you're going to get in a bit of trouble, not just with him, but also with the French. Secondly, if in doubt, fix bayonets, charge with style like MacLeod and his lads. Now, let's not lie, the battle here was a bit of a tactical mess, that's to be sure, but my gosh, it makes for a good story, and at the end of the day, the Light Division did survive to fight another day, so it wasn't all bad. So as you know, guys, you have helped to pay for this trip. Your donations have really helped, especially with food and fuel. So I do want to thank some of those who have put money into the pot. Amongst them, Mark Woodford, whose ancestor Cass Jeffreys was in the 66th Regiment of Foot. You are not forgotten, sir. Secondly, I'd also like to thank Anthony Morgan. He says, good luck over the hills and far away. And he's also researching an officer who was killed in the Peninsula. So I look forward to learning more about your research, sir. So guys, if you like this sort of content, if you want to keep walking in the footsteps of Wellington and his men, then please be sure to like this video, subscribe and leave a comment, because we've got lots more videos to come from Marcus and I. You don't want to miss them.